You can see it now?
We can see it.
Sweet, sweet. All right, we're gonna get this party started here in a second as soon as I start my timer. Alrighty. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the, actually afterwards, I'll put the form for feedback for anyone who wants to provide feedback about today. Make sure when I put it in the chat that you click it before you log out of Zoom. Otherwise, you will not have access to it. We'll more than likely put it in Basecamp as well, but just in case. So I will go ahead and get started. Congratulations to all of our presenters for doing a phenomenal job. And thanks everyone for doing such a fantastic job participating and presenting. I certainly enjoyed myself and hope you did as well. I will share that feedback form. And while we're talking about the feedback form, I'd like anyone who feels willing to share what is your favorite thing so far during your term. If it was an experience, a day, a member, anything, go ahead and you can type it in the chat. I know it's kind of hard to summarize just in a few sentences what our favorite thing is about our term. So it can be an experience or any of those things. And I think my favorite term, I'll do IMS. So my favorite term about with IMS was two different things. Like one, I got to feed Zoe, the I think she's a turkey buzzard, and it was such a magical experience watching her eat a mouse out of my hand. I won't give you details, but anyways, I also think my favorite experience so far with this term has just been meeting everyone and connecting to everybody. Thanks y'all for putting your answers in the chat. I will keep talking while everybody is working on that. But yeah, before the end of the retreat, I'm gonna do a short activity. And before I do this short activity, I kind of want to read these responses because I think that's just so cool that you guys put those in there. Sailor says, working with different sites. Yeah. Building all these skills from Sarah. Amethyst, getting funding for bicycle infrastructure at UT. Very cool. Aurora, learning. I like to work with people more than I thought. Well said. Hayes, working UT football games. Madeline, getting to teach high schoolers 6 lessons in wildlife principles class at Oak Ridge High School last fall. Marnie says, being able to highlight all of the amazing volunteers on social media. And you did a great job with the zine, in case I don't get to tell you. And so did everyone else and everyone who's submitted so far. Rachel, being able to familiarize myself with the new community. Erica, have not gotten to feed Zoe yet, but having the opportunity to use my platform to educate the public, engage with the community, and inspire passion through Weed Warriors. Yes, Erica, bravo, well said. Madison, working with local farmers and meeting their cows or other animals. Anise, being able to be a voice and speak up for people that look like me and don't have a voice or healthcare literacy. Yeah, that is a big why. That's great. Thanks for sharing, y'all. I'd like us to hop into that activity. It's some word association for you. So put it in the chat or raise your hand, whatever you feel most comfortable with. What do you think of when I say the phrase community asset mapping? Jason says resources. Infrastructure, a map showing you all the places you could go for connection. Christine says strength. Resource distribution map from Caitlin. Darcy says community. Ooh, I like it. I like all these answers. Equity from Amethyst. Red string connecting photos on a wall. Yes, accurate, Ashley. That's how I made this presentation, was looking like that. Aurora, locations of useful resources. Yes, professional and personal networks. All of those. All of what y'all just said applies. So the first thing I thought of was the actual map with markers. for each resource for the community that they're researching, highlighted by those living in the community. The goal of traditional asset mapping is to identify and build on existing community strengths. When creating this map, you may do this to find out what resources like a grocery store, library, school, nonprofits, medical services, and other physical places exist there. Josh Cunningham's life. Thanks, Ashley. I just read that. What? Our goal today is a little more outside the box. I want us to first think about what resources we have that aren't physical places. My version of community asset mapping for the purpose of the activity is to highlight what assets we have amongst ourselves as CAC AmeriCorps members, to recognize the capital and capacity of others to use our own hearts, heads, and hands to build creative, positive structures, to get us thinking about how we can tap into each other and what legacy we choose to leave behind in order to leave this place better than we found it and make it easier on the next one of us that has to come through any of the doors that we walk through. Before we establish what those community assets are, we first have to know what an asset is. So same thing, share it out, put it in the chat. Can you tell me, to you, what is an asset? What comes to mind? I'll give everybody a few minutes to turn their gears. Something that contributes value, something useful, a helpful resource or skill, a skill, tools to better oneself or one life, resource, money. Yeah, so resource and assets can totally be interchangeable. Like it's not a hard question. It's just, you know, if someone just said the word asset, what would come to mind to you? And I think all of these things are totally that. Buildings from Amethyst. I think it is really up to you how you interpret this for the purpose of this activity. My version of what an asset is a resource, ourselves as individuals, partnerships we build, the knowledge we pass on, and physical spaces. So I'm going to dig in the most obvious asset, ourselves, and our ability to navigate the systems we all exist in. We have a plethora of experiences that have brought us this far in our lives. So with that plethora of experience, we learn hard skills and soft skills. What are some hard skills that we bring to our organization every day and plan to bring to the organizations we arrive at after AmeriCorps? So think things like marketing, grant writing, data management, GIS. Along those lines, what are the hard skills that you learned? We'll go ahead and put that in the chat. For some folks, it's GIS. For some folks, it's the degree that they, got at their undergrad program or their master's program. That alone has taught you hard skills. My ability to navigate Zoom is a hard skill that I'm still learning. Grant writing, yes. Another one, grant writing and searching. Yeah, that's a skill. Takes a lot of patience too. Oh, WordPress training, data entry, AutoCAD, yeah. A historical understanding of the visual arts, absolutely. These are all hard skills. I think other hard skills that I'm thinking of just off the top of my head, like volunteer management, data management. Darcy says, my personal network within my community. Yeah, absolutely. So while we're talking about hard skills and soft skills, what are some soft skills? And to me, what comes to mind, soft skills are time management, emotional maturity, things that are kind of hard to teach that you have to learn on your own. Adaptability, yeah. Mindfulness, listening, yep. Effective communication, absolutely. Drive, for sure. Um, Other things that maybe we don't always think about. Ooh, compassion, empathy, and creative thinking. Yeah. My version is time management, emotional maturity, determination, perseverance, empathy, compassion, sense of humor, self-awareness, and understanding. So we have certain traits about us that make us attractive candidates for the workforce after our turns, right? Not only do we have technical knowledge, but we have certain qualities about us that make us who we are. That would be a plus for any organization that we reside in. So now that we've established all interpretations of what an asset is, I have a short story I want to share with y'all. So I took a strengths assessment a few months back, and let me tell you, it changed the trajectory of what I thought about myself. Based on the story I wrote about myself in combination with the story I believed about myself from others, if we're being super transparent, I assumed my strengths were not strengths, but flaws in my character that make me susceptible to compassion fatigue. My strengths were something along the lines of, based off this strengths-based assessment, you have to you have to read a couple sections of the book and you have to take a quiz. And the quiz told me a couple things. One, I'm a relator, listener, mediator, and so forth. That made me feel a couple things. I was tired of feeling not so confident about, yeah, absolutely, Erica, I will share the resources. So I was feeling tired of not feeling so confident about my abilities. I wasn't surprised by the results that I got from the strengths assessment. I was going into it biased, like, it's not going to tell me anything useful. Like, I think I just had this really unrealistic assumption of all tests, like personality traits or whatever, that they put you in a box. And I don't like boxes. That's like inner child me talking. But I also think that this taught me that it's how you interpret it about yourself. Like, leave what doesn't apply to you and take what you resonate with. And that will help you so much in life. So with the strengths as like relator, listener, and so forth, and not feeling confident, I had to do some inventory of self after that assessment. I was having a small quarter life, midlife, early life crisis. It was just really stressful for me to look at myself this way. Like, I thought that meant weak. You know, if you're compassionate, all you do is listen to people. It's not a great asset. You know, being able to be assertive or being able to have people listen to you and actually believe it. To me, that was more attractive. And so I had to do some inventory of self. And luckily, very luckily, I'm in a really supportive office space where everyone reassured me that those results were super on brand for me. And you know, they said, like, that's a positive thing, you know that, right? And at the time, I didn't really. I found myself over time, the more I thought about this, the more I realized that my abilities, being able to listen, being able to be compassionate, being able to facilitate and mediate are amazing skills to have. I found myself facing each day with more joy and excitement when I realized my assets are what make me who I am and that they're great. Each and every one of us has assets that are equally profound. There may come a time in your life, if you haven't already, when you begin to question the stories you've been told to believe about yourself, and you feel pulled to write a new one. My new story looks very different than the one I wrote last year or last month. Just because I'm not a pro in one area doesn't mean I'm not bringing a lot to the table, just like each and every one of you. So I want you all to write down right now, or put it in the chat, your top one or top two. You don't have to share it if you don't want to. You can just write it down for yourself. What you would call your top one or top two strengths that you feel you possess. And if anyone feels comfortable sharing, please feel free to do so. Like I said, my strengths were compassion, relator, which is hilarious because I thought it was spelled realtor. So real quick, I learned it was relator. I just had to let everybody know. Oh, geez. Anyways, if you feel comfortable sharing, please do so. While everyone takes time to think about, Jason is on it. Okay. Creativity and adaptability. Nice. Creative, adaptable. Those are huge, y'all. Being able to see and believe multiple, often conflicting viewpoints at once. Christine, this is why you would be great for the FBI for using a bomb, or like a lawyer, or just anything. I can see your sort of empathy and compassion, but also ability to like listen to both points. So yes, absolutely great skill. I think this is great, y'all. Amethyst says advocacy, being loud. For sure, having to aggressively advocate for folks that do not oftentimes get listened to is an essential skill to have for you, and for others who you may not realize right now that you are helping. Openness, yeah. Leadership, yeah. Leadership, that's a whole thing. Being in a position where you are leading people is scary, because you're like, oh, me? I am here to lead? You asked me to? And if you're uncomfortable in that space where you sort of have to take the lead, it's scary. And I certainly am not shy, but I thought like that quality would make me a great leader. Little did I know that that is, you need more than just being able to be talkative to be a leader. So while everybody's still writing those, and we have identified what we believe our strengths are, I want you to think about how you got to that conclusion. Was it something people have told you about yourself? Or was it something you realized you had all along? Or was it something you've been working on? Whatever it is, you have a completely different ballgame in front of you when you realize that is what makes you the best you there is. When you begin to gain the confidence to know your worth, you're an asset no matter what skills you have. Next, I want y'all to think about one thing that you think you can improve on. You don't have to share, you can write it down, but if you feel comfortable, feel free. It's hard sometimes to look at the things that we have to work on. For me, mine is finding the confidence to believe in me. That's a learned skill. I like to think that's what talent is, a refined, learned skill. You weren't born with it, you have to practice. So our traits are what make us unique individuals. Strengths and areas of improvement and all. What I really want us to focus on is not like a weakness or areas that we lack, just how we can make them better and how we can sharpen what skills we currently have. One of the traits I discovered about myself was that I like to listen to people. After I took that assessment, I kind of assumed that it was an innate part of us as humans, but I don't know if y'all have been out into the world lately, but not everyone likes to listen. There's something magical that happened when I learned that intentionally practicing this skill more and more makes me more happy. And it just makes me a happier Cele and a more balanced Cele. And the same will happen for you. There's nothing wrong with being the introvert or the extrovert or the talker or the listener. It takes a village, right? So you can use all of those different traits. You can be the extroverted person who is an introvert around some people. It takes duality to exist in this world. We face trouble when we are unaware of ourselves and we're out of balance, right? So self-awareness is key when figuring out what makes you thrive. What learning about my strengths also taught me was that the strengths I didn't possess as much of are learned skills. So don't beat yourself up when you're not the influencer or the initiator or any of those things. That doesn't really get you anywhere. You just try to do better next time and continue practicing. If anyone's ever told you that you're afraid of conflict, first ignore them. Okay, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Really, first acknowledge why that bothers you. I was so bothered when someone told me that. For me, I felt bothered because I know when to pick my battles. That doesn't mean I'm afraid to speak up though, right? I grew up in a house with a lot of New Yorkers. It was loud at all times, y'all. I learned how important mindfulness is. This has become a skill. So I now tell you all this to say how much of that was projection from the other person when they told me I had a problem with conflict. We will never know, and I'm okay with that. What we do know is that we know ourselves better than anyone else. We know we will grow with practice in those areas. We learn by doing, right? And that means doing things that you don't love. For me, that's public speaking, y'all, and tackling a task that feels massive at first, like applying to college or applying to jobs after AmeriCorps. I will panic so much because it gives me anxiety to do things I may not be immediately good at. I realized a long time ago, nothing grows in a comfort zone. I will gain nothing from staying away from scary and hard things. I hate it, but it's true. I will grow even more if I practice the things that are hard for me, as long as I remember to rest and be patient with myself. So I say all of this to say, if I can give you any advice in the world, it would be to think about yourself like you think about your best friend. You know what makes the person, you know what about that person makes you fond of them, and you love them the way that they are. Thinking about yourself this way will help you be more objective and less critical. Not judging yourself during this process is important. I hope this helps you believe in your endless possibilities. The ability to learn about myself in this space through my own eyes and the eyes of others has changed the game for me. I have much hope despite my anxiety around the current and future state of things. This is something I can't control. I can focus on what I can control. Being in the office gives me a bird's eye view of the direct and indirect impact everyone is making. This has been critical for my hopeful perspective. It's really easy to feel like a tiny who that Horton heard when you're stuck doing something mundane, like moving pine cones or pulling grass, okay? It is the worst. And you question whether you're doing anything that matters and why am I even here? But let me tell you, seeing everyone do the absolute best and try their hardest for this community, for their site, for themselves has been deeply impactful. Watching each and every single one of us persevere despite personal challenges has shown me that we are all incredibly brave and capable of overcoming any adversity that comes our way. I hope to give you all a similar experience now. I see many of us share on Basecamp when we need boots on the ground. I encourage you to go even further than that and think about what you can benefit from that you don't have, or what others can benefit from at your site, whether that be partnerships, resources, general knowledge, helping somebody learn how to use Zoom better, whatever it is. One example is a partnership that I was a part of. When I served at IMES, I was able to lead some workdays clearing trails with AMBC. Now, IMES has a great relationship with them, and AMBC is going to get their own AmeriCorps member. For those of y'all that don't know, Appalachian Bike Mountain Club helps with some of the trails in Knoxville. And they're great. You should check them out. So when I served at IMES, I had very little idea that I would be participating in a partnership. Didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue what all of the organizations with CAC AmeriCorps was doing when I was at IMES. I was aware that there were other organizations, of course, and I knew briefly what they did, but I wasn't 110% aware like I am now. And so I want you all to think about your elevator speech. For those of you that don't know what an elevator speech is, essentially who you are, where you're serving, and what you're up to. So take time to think about it and think about what you really do. How would you translate this to a person who doesn't have a clue what AmeriCorps is? And what have you done that can't be measured by numbers, right? Because we talk about numbers and reporting a lot, but there's so much beauty in what you're doing that's not just numbers. So what stories do you have to share? Take some time to think about those traditional and non-traditional resources you're privy to. Just think about that over time, and you can write it down or you can write it in the chat what your elevator speech is, but I won't make you do that because we're pretty short on time. So let me wrap up. Maybe you learned something new about a site, a person, or a group of people, and you'll discover that there is something you could learn from everyone. Maybe IMES could have used more volunteers. Maybe I could have asked another member how they're doing with recruiting volunteers in a pandemic, and I would have learned pretty quickly how not alone I was. So I want to encourage you all to keep those relationships going and keep these assets building, and find a time to meet safely and talk to your peers. Find a new person that you haven't had time to talk to and send them a, hey, you want to chat over Zoom or grab coffee for a walk and talk. This is also capacity building. Share your stories, your experience, and your wealth of knowledge with each other. Your stories make you you. We love hearing them. If any members want to share their story on paper to have forever, in case you may not know, this is the Ashley plug. We have a lovely VISTA leader that makes the zine for all of you to share what's on your hearts and minds. Reach out to her. If you feel so inclined, submit your artwork, your poems, your stories, and so on. I truly and deeply believe that you never know who might need to hear what you have to say. When you have to say, what you have to say matters. I know the world can feel chaotic and ugly, but you can choose to turn on your own light, right? And I know it's hard, but it's there. Even if it feels dim, it is bright to someone that loves you. It is bright to someone that serves with you. It is bright to the random stranger on the street that might receive a compliment, right? So use your voice and advocate for what you believe in. Start with yourself, because you are an incredibly unique human being that matters today and every day. Your voice is everything. It can help you turn on that light and turn on that light for some other people. It's very on brand for me to leave you with a quote. So here it goes. Keep trucking. All right, thank y'all. Before we go, if we haven't sent it in the chat already, I totally forgot. So we'll probably send the feedback link in Basecamp. We hope you leave today feeling empowered and connected. I truly hope you left this feeling a sense of community and hope for what the future holds. We look forward to hearing from you all. Ashley, I think I will pass the floor to you. If you have anything to say, you can say yes or no. If not, we'll boot, scoot, and boogie out of here.
I just wanted to say thank you, everyone. This has been lovely.
Before we go, I just want to say thank you to Ashley and Cele. They did a remarkable job coordinating the vast majority of this presentation, the presenters, the composition of the whole thing. It's immensely impressive. I never fail to be impressed by our members and the things that they can get done. And this particular event, you know, we started it years ago. Christine came up with it when she was a VISTA leader, and every year it continues to reconnect. You know, we do this to reconnect members, but every year it reconnects me to my purpose and why I'm here. I hope that y'all got some of that too.
Thanks, Jason. And thanks everybody for attending. Thanks everyone for the help. Thanks Leah and Lauren for handing out soup and zines. Thank you so much everybody for attending. If you didn't hear me in the beginning, make sure while everyone's typing in thank you, so it's really hard to scroll, you scroll up and click the feedback form for submitting. If you don't get to do that, it will close out before you close Zoom. We'll probably put it in the Basecamp. But other than that, bye y'all. Have a great day. Thank you. Niece, you don't have to stay if you don't want to, but you're okay. And you're muted, so I can't hear you.
Michaela or Brandy, do y'all have anything you'd like to talk about?
We're also still recording, heads up.